My ex demanded $5,000 a month in child support. I fought back in court. I never thought my life would unravel in a courtroom, the air thick with tension, as lawyers tossed around numbers like they were trading poker chips. $5,000 a month, my ex-wife's demand, rang in my ears like a gunshot, over and over again, and I couldn't stop the bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just money. This was power. This was her way of crushing me after the marriage had already been ripped apart. When we first got married, I didn't imagine it would end like this. We were young, hopeful, full of dreams, and I honestly believed she was my partner in everything. We had a nice home, a decent life, and eventually, 2 beautiful kids. I worked, long hours, climbing my way up in finance, pushing through late nights just so we could afford a future we both said we wanted. But somewhere along the way, things cracked. At first, it was small. Arguments about how much I worked, how often I was gone, how she felt invisible in our marriage. Then came the bigger things. Her resentment, her bitterness, and eventually, her infidelity. I discovered it by accident, a message that wasn't meant for me, and in that moment, I knew our marriage was over. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. She told me straight to my face that she hadn't felt loved in years, that I'd abandoned her emotionally, that the affair was a symptom of me choosing money over family. The divorce that followed was brutal, but I thought once the papers were signed, once the dust settled, we'd find a way to co-parent and move on. I was wrong. The first inkling of the storm came in the form of a thick envelope from her lawyer. Child support calculations, demands that seemed unreal, $5,000 a month. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages, the legal jargon swimming before my eyes. My lawyer had warned me she might try something aggressive, but I wasn't prepared for the sheer audacity of it. I wasn't some billionaire with endless cash flow. Yes, I made a good living, but I had bills, debts, and obligations of my own. And most importantly, I wanted to be in my kids' lives, not just treated like some walking ATM. I remember calling her that night, my voice shaking with rage. 5,000? Are you out of your mind? I demanded. On the other end, she was calm, almost smug. That's what it costs to raise our children. If you actually cared about their well-being, you wouldn't even hesitate. Her words cut like glass. I did care. I cared so much it ached in my chest. But I also knew this wasn't about the kids. This was about her lifestyle, her anger, her need to punish me for leaving, for not groveling, for not begging her to come back, even after I'd seen the messages from another man. The weeks leading up to court were some of the darkest of my life. My lawyer sat across from me in his sleek office, tapping his pen against the table. "She's overshooting," he said. "Judges see this all the time. She's playing hardball, hoping you'll fold or negotiate somewhere close to her number." But I knew my ex. Folding wasn't an option. If I caved, she'd bleed me dry. Every dollar would be another chain around my neck. Every payment would be her reminder that she still controlled me. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake I'd made in our marriage. Was she right? Had I neglected her? Did my endless chase for success turn her into someone who had to look elsewhere for affection? Then I'd think of my kids. The way my daughter clung to me when I dropped her off at school. The way my son's eyes lit up when I showed up at his soccer game. And my doubts hardened into resolve. This wasn't about me or her. This was about them. About making sure they knew their father wasn't just some faceless provider, that he fought for them, that he refused to be shut out of their lives. When the court date finally arrived, I walked into the building with my lawyer by my side, my stomach a knot of nerves. She was already there, sitting at the table with her attorney, dressed in a sharp suit, her face a mask of icy confidence. She barely looked at me. When the judge entered, The room hushed, and suddenly, it all became real. Her lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of me as a cold, distant father who cared more about spreadsheets than bedtime stories. They painted her as the devoted mother, sacrificing everything for the kids while I chased wealth and prestige. My blood boiled, but I kept my face stoic, my hands clasped tightly on the table. When it was our turn, my lawyer laid out the facts, my income, my expenses, the time I spent with the children. He didn't try to vilify her, though I wanted him to. Instead, he stuck to logic, to fairness, to the truth that $5,000 a month was not only unreasonable but exploitative. The judge listened, her expression unreadable. Every so often, she'd glance between us, her eyes sharp, as if she could see right through the polished words and crafted narratives to the raw mess underneath. I sat there, my mind a whirlwind of anger, fear, and guilt. I remembered the nights when my ex would cry, saying she felt alone even when I was right beside her. I remembered the way she used to smile, the way she used to look at me before everything soured. And I wondered, how did we get here? How did two people who once promised forever end up tearing each other apart over money in a courtroom? The hearing ended that day without a decision. The judge said she needed more time to review the evidence. As we left the courtroom, my ex brushed past me, her perfume lingering in the air, her voice low enough for only me to hear. "You think you're going to win? You don't know me anymore." My hands clenched into fists. She was right. I didn't know her anymore. Or maybe, I thought bitterly, this was who she had been all along. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights flickering outside my window. I poured myself a drink, stared at the blank wall, and thought about everything I'd lost. My marriage, my sense of family, my peace. But then I thought about my kids, their laughter, their innocence, the way they still looked at me like I was their hero, and I knew I couldn't give up. This wasn't just a fight about money. It was a fight for my place in their lives, and I would fight until my last breath if I had to. Part 1 ends here, with me, standing at the edge of a battle that could either destroy me or set me free, knowing that the next round in court would determine everything. Would the judge see the truth? Or would she believe the lies spun so carefully by the woman I once thought I'd spend forever with? The waiting was torture, but one thing was certain. I wasn't backing down. The weeks between the first hearing and the next court date felt like a slow descent into madness. Every morning, I woke up with that number echoing in my mind, $5,000, a demand so outrageous it mocked everything I had worked for. I'd drag myself to work, forcing my mind onto numbers and clients. But even as I sat in conference rooms dressed in my best suit, my head was somewhere else. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. And the worst part was that every phone call from my kids carried this undercurrent of fear. Would they think I was abandoning them if the court ruled against me? My lawyer kept reassuring me. "Judges aren't stupid," he said during one of our late-night prep sessions. "They know when someone is overreaching. Stick to the facts, stay calm, and let her hang herself with her own greed." But calm wasn't my strong suit anymore. Every time I saw my ex, every time I read another one of her passive-aggressive messages, lines like, "If you actually cared about your children, you wouldn't fight this," I felt the rage boiling up in me. She wasn't just fighting for money. She was trying to rewrite the story of our marriage, of our family, casting me as the villain who walked out and left her to pick up the pieces. I couldn't let that stand. The second court session was more brutal than the first. Her lawyer came armed with a stack of evidence, printouts of texts where I told her I was working late, screenshots of my LinkedIn profile boasting about new clients and bigger accounts, even bank statements twisted, to make me look like I was hiding wealth. "This man prioritizes his career over his children," her lawyer said in a practiced, righteous tone. "And now that the marriage is over, he wants to prioritize his wallet as well." I wanted to leap across the table. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. My lawyer gave me a slight shake of his head, reminding me of the strategy we'd agreed on. Still, inside, I was on fire. When it was our turn, my lawyer stood and systematically dismantled their claims. He showed my actual monthly income versus expenses, breaking down my rent, my debts, my insurance. He reminded the court of the visitation schedule, of the fact that I was with my kids multiple nights a week and every other weekend. This is not a father abandoning his children, he said firmly. This is a father fighting to remain an equal parent, not reduced to a checkbook. The judge's eyes lingered on me as my lawyer spoke, and for a moment I thought, just, maybe, she understood. But the tension didn't end when the gavel came down for another continuance. No, that was just the beginning. Outside the courthouse, my ex confronted me. The mask of politeness she wore in front of the judge was gone, and her real face, the one twisted with bitterness, emerged. "You're pathetic," she hissed, her voice low but sharp as a knife. "You think the court is going to side with you? You think you can outsmart me? I'll bleed you dry, and when I'm done, you won't even be able to afford your own damn rent." I stared at her, and for the first time, I realized this wasn't about child support at all. This was about revenge. She wanted to see me crawl. She wanted to see me broken. That night, I sat down with my lawyer again. "We have to dig deeper," I said. "If she wants war, then let's give her war." So we started gathering everything: financial records, testimonies from friends, and neighbors who saw me with my kids, even statements from teachers who knew I was actively involved in their schooling. Piece by piece, we built a case that wasn't just about numbers. It was about me as a father, as a man, as someone who refused to be erased from his children's lives. But with every step forward, she pushed harder. She began denying me calls with the kids, making excuses about their schedules. She told them things, half-truths, manipulations, that made them ask me questions I couldn't bear to hear. "Daddy, why don't you want to take care of us?" My chest tightened every time. How could I explain to an 8-year-old that this wasn't about love? It was about money and control. My anger grew, but so did my determination. I wasn't going to let her poison them against me. I wasn't going to let her win. The third hearing approached like a storm cloud. I barely slept the night before, my mind rehearsing every argument, every rebuttal. I thought about my ex's face, that smug smile she wore whenever her lawyer spoke, and I swore I'd wipe it away. In court, the battle lines were drawn sharper than ever. Her lawyer doubled down, accusing me of hiding assets, of using creative accounting to make myself look poorer than I was. They even suggested I had offshore accounts, a lie so bold I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I sat there, my jaw clenched, while my lawyer methodically tore their accusations apart. He showed pay stubs, tax returns, everything down to the last cent. There are no hidden accounts, no hidden wealth, just a man trying to meet his obligations fairly without being strangled by unreasonable demands, he said. The judge nodded, slightly, jotting down notes, and I clung to that small gesture like a lifeline. Still, I could feel the weight of the room pressing down on me. My ex sat there, her arms crossed, her eyes gleaming with the kind of hatred that made me wonder if she even remembered who I was anymore. At one point, during a recess, I caught her looking at me with something almost triumphant, as if she knew something I didn't. It sent a chill through me. What was she planning? What card did she still have up her sleeve? That question haunted me as I walked out of the courthouse that day, the battle unresolved yet again. I felt like I was fighting a war with no end, every skirmish draining me, more and more. But when I picked up my kids that weekend, when they ran into my arms with smiles that melted everything else away, I knew why I couldn't quit. I'd endure every lie, every accusation, every sleepless night if it meant protecting them from the fallout of this toxic war. Because in the end, this wasn't about her. It wasn't even about me. It was about them. And I'd fight until my last breath to make sure they didn't grow up thinking their father was just a paycheck. Part 2 ends here, with me staring down the barrel of yet another round in court, knowing the worst was still to come, and bracing myself for the possibility that she had one more devastating trick waiting for me. By the time Part 3 of this nightmare rolled around, I felt like I was living in a war zone where every day was another battle, every night a restless vigil waiting for the next attack. My lawyer warned me that custody and support battles weren't sprints, they were marathons. But I hadn't expected the kind of psychological warfare my ex seemed hell-bent on waging. And then came the revelation of her trick, the one that made my stomach churn with disbelief and fury. It started with a whisper. A rumor passed to me through a mutual friend who hesitated before speaking. "Look, I don't know if it's true, but she's been telling people you've been hiding money in your business accounts, that you've been funneling it through clients." At first, I brushed it off. How could anyone take such a claim seriously? But when we arrived at the next hearing, her lawyer unveiled it like a trump card. "Your Honor," he began with that smug little smile that made me want to smash the table, "we have reason to believe Mr. Has not been forthright about his financial situation. Evidence suggests he has been disguising income through his professional accounts." He slid a folder across the table, filled with spreadsheets and bank statements I'd never seen before. My heart lurched. Where had this come from? I glanced at my lawyer, who immediately requested a recess. In the small conference room outside the courtroom, he spread the documents out, scanning them with sharp eyes. "They're garbage," he muttered. "Fabrications, misinterpretations, half-truths strung together to look incriminating." But I could see the trap. To the untrained eye, it looked bad. Money transfers between accounts, payments labeled vaguely, numbers highlighted as though they were proof of some secret stash. My ex had gotten her hands on partial records, twisted them, and presented them as evidence of fraud. When we returned, my lawyer fought back hard. He explained each transaction, tied them to invoices, showed the corresponding expenses. He reminded the judge that my taxes had been audited just the year before and passed clean. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. The judge leaned back, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me. I felt exposed, naked, like my entire integrity was on trial. My ex sat there with that damn smirk, her eyes glinting with malicious satisfaction. After the hearing, I confronted her in the hallway. "Where the hell did you get those records?" I demanded, my voice low but shaking with rage. She shrugged, feigning innocence. "Truth has a way of coming out," she said softly. "You can only hide for so long." It took everything in me not to explode. My lawyer pulled me away, warning me that any outburst could be used against me. That night, I sat in my apartment, the city buzzing outside while my world fell apart inside. I poured drink after drink, trying to drown the feeling that I was losing, that she had the upper hand, that no matter how hard I fought, she would twist the truth until even the judge couldn't tell which way was up. The phone rang. It was my daughter. Her little voice pierced the fog of whiskey. "Daddy, Mommy said you don't want to give us money because you love your job more than us. Is that true?" My chest caved in. I pressed my hand to my forehead, fighting back tears. "No, sweetheart," I whispered, my throat tight. "That's not true at all. I love you more than anything in this world. Everything I'm doing. It's for you and your brother." She was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "I love you too, Daddy," before hanging up. That was the moment something inside me snapped into focus. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore. This was about protecting my kids from the poison my ex was dripping into their ears. She wanted to turn them against me, to rewrite reality itself until they believed her lies. And I couldn't let that happen. My lawyer and I doubled down. We hired a forensic accountant to review every shred of financial data, to dismantle her accusations piece by piece with professional credibility. We gathered affidavits from clients, proving the legitimacy of my accounts. We prepared a countersuit for defamation if her lies went too far. The day of the next hearing, the tension in the courtroom was suffocating. My ex's lawyer strutted in with confidence, but when our forensic accountant took the stand, his calm, meticulous explanations cut through their accusations like a scalpel. "These are not hidden funds," he said, pointing to the charts. "They are normal business, transactions properly reported and taxed. There is no evidence, none, that Mr. E has concealed assets." The judge nodded slowly, scribbling notes. I stole a glance at my ex. For the first time, the smugness slipped. Her jaw tightened, her eyes darting away. A crack in the armor. Still, the battle was far from won. The judge announced she needed yet another continuation to review the expert's testimony and the documents. The gavel came down, and once again we were left dangling, living in limbo. But this time, I felt something I hadn't in months. Hope. Outside the courthouse, I caught my ex's eye. "You can throw everything you want at me," I said quietly, firmly. "You can lie, twist, and scheme, but I won't break. And I won't let you take our kids from me." Her face hardened, but she didn't reply. She just turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor like gunshots fading into the distance. That night, I picked up my kids for our scheduled time. We ate pizza on the couch, watched movies, laughed until our stomachs hurt. And as I tucked them into bed, their small arms wrapped around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Certainty. No matter how dark the road ahead, no matter how vicious the battle became, I would endure it all for them. Part 3 ends here, with me standing on the cusp of a final showdown, armed with evidence, resolve, and the love of my children as my shield. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt like I had a fighting chance. By the time the final hearing came, I was running on fumes. Months of legal battles had hollowed me out, but at the same time, they had forged something inside me, something sharper, harder, a resolve I didn't know I had until I was forced to find it. The morning of that last day, I put on my suit like it was armor. My lawyer met me outside the courthouse, his briefcase bulging with documents, affidavits, and the forensic accountant's airtight report. "Today's the day," he told me. "We show the judge the truth, and we close this chapter." His words steadied me, but my heart still hammered as we walked into the courtroom. My ex was already there, seated with her lawyer, dressed in immaculate black, like she was attending a funeral. Maybe in her mind, she was. She looked at me once, her expression unreadable, then turned back to whisper something to her attorney. I sat down, my kids' faces burning in my mind. I thought about that phone call with my daughter, about the way she'd asked if I loved money more than her. That memory fueled me like jet fuel poured on a dying flame. I wasn't just here for myself. I was here to protect them from being turned into pawns. The judge entered and the room went still. After the preliminaries, my ex's lawyer launched into his opening salvo, repeating the same tired accusations: hidden funds, selfishness, lack of support. He spoke with conviction, but to me it sounded hollow, like a broken record. Then, it was our turn. My lawyer stood, calm but fierce, and laid out our case with surgical precision. He presented the forensic accountant's report, which dismantled every single one of their claims. He presented my clean tax records, the client affidavits, the invoices. Piece by piece, he stripped away the lies until nothing was left but the truth. Finally, the accountant himself took the stand again. His voice was steady, professional, unflappable. There is no evidence whatsoever that Mr. Roos has hidden assets. The financial accusations are not supported by facts. He paused, then added, "In my professional opinion, these claims are baseless and misleading." I saw the judge write those words down, baseless and misleading. My ex shifted in her seat, her jaw tightening, her nails digging into her palms. For the first time, she looked less like a victor and more like a cornered animal. When it was my turn to speak, my lawyer gave me a nod. I stood, took a deep breath, and looked at the judge. "Your Honor," I began, my voice trembling at first, but strengthening with each word. "This fight has never been about avoiding responsibility. I have always supported my children. I want them to have everything they need to thrive. But $5,000 a month is not support. It's punishment. It's not about my children's needs. It's about control. I am here today because I refuse to be manipulated into financial ruin under the guise of parenthood. I love my kids. I live for them. And I will provide for them in every way I can. But I will not let lies destroy me or turn them against me." My throat tightened, but I pushed on. This case has already cost me more than money. It's cost me sleepless nights, my peace of mind, and moments with my children I can never get back. Please, Your Honor, look at the truth. Look at the facts. My children deserve parents who can provide, not parents locked in a war fueled by greed. When I sat down, the room was silent. Even my ex's lawyer seemed momentarily at a loss. The judge leaned back in her chair, her fingers steepled, her eyes heavy with thought. And then she spoke. "I've reviewed the evidence presented, the testimony given, and the reports filed. I find no basis for the claim that Mr. Ragin has hidden assets or misrepresented his financial situation. The request for $5,000 in monthly support is not reasonable, nor is it reflective of the children's actual needs." My breath caught. The judge continued, "Based on the evidence, I am ordering a fairer arrangement, a monthly support payment, reflective of both parents' incomes and the children's needs. This is not to punish either party, but to ensure stability for the children." Relief surged through me so hard I nearly collapsed. It wasn't just a victory, it was vindication. My ex's face twisted, the mask finally cracking, but there was nothing she could do. The gavel came down, and just like that, the war was over. Afterward, outside the courthouse, my lawyer clapped me on the shoulder. "You did good," he said simply. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt drained, hollowed out, but also free. That night, I picked up my kids. We went out for ice cream, and for the first time in months, I could look them in the eyes without that weight crushing me. My daughter climbed into my lap, sticky hands and all, and whispered, "Daddy, are you happy now?" I hugged her tight, tears burning my eyes. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm happy now." Later, when the kids were asleep, I sat alone in the quiet, thinking about everything I'd endured. The lies, the tricks, the courtroom battles. I thought about how close I'd come to losing faith in myself, in the system, even in the bond I had with my children. And I realized something. My ex hadn't just been fighting for money. She'd been fighting to break me, to bend me to her will. But she failed. Not because I had the best lawyer or the sharpest accountant, but because I had something she couldn't touch. The love of my kids and the strength that love gave me. Now the war was over, but the scars remained. I'd never forget what it felt like to be dragged through hell by someone I once trusted, but I'd also never forget the lesson it taught me. Sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought with fists or weapons, but with patience, truth, and the refusal to back down, no matter how stacked the odds. So here I am, standing on the other side of the storm, Not unbroken, but stronger. Not defeated, but resolved. And I ask myself, and you, when someone you once loved tries to use lies, greed, and manipulation to destroy you, how far would you go to fight back?